If you find a blocked off road in the woods, don't go down it. It was getting near Halloween and my buddy wanted to scare our girlfriends and or find a good makeout spot in the woods. We were seniors in high school and all still lived at home, so we had to find out of the way spots to smooch. My buddy said he found the perfect place, but we needed bolt cutters. My dad had some, so that Friday night I swiped them from our garage and the four of us set out for Old Hagman's Road. No one lived off of that old dirt road, which ran through the woods connecting two other roads. These roads themselves didn't get much traffic, but Old Hagman's Road got none at all because it was blocked off on both ends by fence-style gates which were locked with chains and padlocks. Right on the gates were warning signs that read "Do not enter by order of the Howard County Sheriff's Office." We pulled up to the south entrance and my friend got out and cut the chain with the bolt cutters and opened the gate. I drove the car and past the gate, which he shut behind us. He got back in the car and told us all that they closed the road off about 20 years earlier, but no one knows why. He said there were rumors that people had died back there and even the cops won't drive down it. The road itself had gotten bumpy over the years with dips and occasional branches lying across its width. My headlights shone up ahead only about 40 to 50 feet, revealing the autumn-colored leaves on branches overhanging the path mixed in with some evergreens. The darkness outside of the cone of light cast from the car was deep and foreboding, and the woods were thick and cluttered with vines, bushes, and various brush, all casting twisted black shadows onto the trees and litter behind them. The girls held our arms and cuddled closer, mildly intimidated by the spooky setting. At one point on a straight section of the road, I briefly turned off the headlights for a laugh. The girls howled almost in unison for me to turn them back on. Me and my bud chuckled out loud and I promised not to turn them off again. I drove at a steady 10 miles per hour only because the bumps were too serious to comfortably handle any faster. I rounded a corner to the left when we all saw two red lights up ahead. They seemed like they were reflecting the headlights of my car rather than being self-illuminating. I stopped to get a better look before going on. Was this the eye shine of some animal? They seemed too far apart for that. I proceeded cautiously. When we got about 50 feet from the lights, the body of the thing the lights were attached to faded into view from the thick darkness behind. It was an old car. The rear reflectors were the source of the red lights we saw. It was a dark blue sedan with its paint chipping off, a good bit of rust, and lots of leaves on its drunken roof. The rear window was covered in dust, and as I steered to the left side of the road to go around it, we could see that so were the windows to the doors, but we all noticed that the driver's window was down about halfway. I slowed down a little as I creeped past the abandoned car. Looking over, the interior couldn't be seen through the dust-caked windows. As the inside of the driver's seat came into view through its half-open window, a sense of dread and anticipation swept through us all. The steering wheel was in view when my buddy spoke up to assure everyone not to worry. They wouldn't close the road without getting everybody out of here first. They were comforting words, and of course, he was right. No need to worry. But as the headrest to the driver's seat came into view, we all stared at it anyway, transfixed and tight with suspense. The dust on the window prevented us from being able to see through it clearly, so all we could make out was a sliver of the interior. At first glance it seemed the seat was empty, but then I noticed just above the top of the partially rolled down window you could see something on the backrest of the seat. It looked like dark hair on the top of someone's head who had slid down in the seat, but it was just an inch or so and it was dark. So it could have been something else. One of the girls asked if that was a person. No one answered her because we weren't sure. I had come to a complete stop so we could look at it a little longer and try to figure it out. Out of habit I glanced in my driver's side rearview mirror and noted the dim red glow of my brake lights on the brush to the side of the road and on the dirt. But something was off. I could see a dark bulge to the side of the car. It was protruding outward from the rear bumper. It seemed to be right up against the car, but it was too dark to make out any details. Then it moved. There was someone there, crouching. I looked with more focus to try to make out what it was when the brake lights revealed an opening mouth and the appearance of a set of teeth and long canine fangs. My heart started racing and hands trembling. I started to move forward to get past the car, saying nothing so as not to alarm the others. I kept one foot on the brake to keep the brake lights on as I watched it in the mirror. As I pulled forwards it stood up. Its body was wide and thick. It stood on two legs and was humanoid in its basic structure. It had large hands with thick claws at the end of each finger. It was covered in hair except for its chest, which was reminiscent of a gorilla's chest. Its head was exactly like the head of a bison, only with thick fangs and an angry grimace on its face. It even had horns. It stood there as I drove off. No one else had seen it. With a wavering voice I asked my buddy to have the bolt cutters ready. I said we needed to get out of there fast. He suggested we turn around, but I informed him that there wasn't room on the road for that and I wasn't going back that way no matter what. I increased my speed and held it there even though the bumps were making the passengers angry. My buddy could tell something was wrong. He asked me if I saw something else besides the possible man in the car. I replied only to tell him to have the bolt cutters ready and to work as fast as he could when we got to the north gate. Up ahead there was a small opening in the trees to the left, and as we passed it a dark figure on all fours ran towards the car from the clearing. It slammed into the driver's side door hard, making a loud boom and pushing the car sideways about a half a foot. The girls screamed. I put the pedal to the floor. I checked the rear view and the thing was on all fours sideways in the road. It looked up towards us and then gave chase. As we sped along the road we passed an old police car off to the right in a ditch. The driver's side door was open and several of its windows were broken. Around the next bend in the road there was an old station wagon. The windows were all broken on this one and it was positioned sideways across the road almost blocking our way. Inside we could see the decayed remains of a family. Mom and dad in the front seat with skeletal smiles and two teenage kids in the back, both rotted and mummified. The girls were in full freak-out mode and my buddy was now holding the bolt cutters up as if to use them as a weapon if need be. I was banging over the bumps and the beast was pounding on the trunk as it tried to catch up. We had the gate in sight when I realized that this wasn't going to work. It would be upon us by the time my buddy could get the chain cut. There were no other side roads and not enough room to turn around. The gate was far too sturdy to bust through with the car. When I stopped it was going to break a window and at least one of us was going to die. There was no way around that now. I had to make a choice. A choice I hope none of you will ever have to make. A choice I have to live with for the rest of my life. Later a man in a black suit would show up at the sheriff's office and I'd be released. No sign of my having been arrested could be found in the public record. I had to sign a paper preventing me from talking about what happened for the rest of my life or face a 10-year prison sentence and a $10,000 fine. My father received a new car as a gift from an anonymous stranger. The parents of the other 3 passengers who were with me also received anonymous compensation. But even now, years later, I still wake up in a cold sweat at night. I can still hear their screams. I can still see their faces staring at me in horror and disbelief as the beast pulled the girls out of the car, tore them with its claws, and bit into their necks. I can still see the blood on the window of my open driver's side door. I can still see that horn thrusting out of my buddy's chest at the gate as he dropped the bolt cutters and I climbed down the other side to safety. And I still have to admit to myself that even though I carry a ton of guilt and shame for leaving them to die, I still have to admit that if I got a do-over, I'd do the same thing all over again. And if you saw what I saw, you would too.